Welcome to Operation Evil. I'm so excited that you reached out today. I don't have a title or anything for this episode right now, so we'll just worry about that later. But we have a special guest. And do you go by Liz or Elizabeth?
Either or.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elizabeth is here, and she reached out after we made a post about domestic violence awareness, and it's something that we're very passionate about. We want to empower women and get all the information out there for anyone else that's going through this. And you were so kind and you reached out and you're like, I would love to come on and share my story. So I'm Nyoka, and over there is Megan.
Hi.
I guess let's start off by saying you are not in the United States. So that's awesome. Welcome. That
Thank
is
you.
so cool. We already talked earlier. I was like, what's the weather like for you? And it's like up and down like it is here. So yeah, we get all 4 seasons in 1 week at the moment.
Sometimes we get them in one day. So.
Yeah, it's good times. Good
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
So tell me why you reached out.
So one of my closest friends had sent over a post about your page, and you were talking about domestic violence and how you were looking for some people who have been through that experience and were willing to share their story. And I am a domestic abuse survivor, and I am actually somebody who I try, at least, to speak about my story because I share it every year on my Facebook and things like that, because I truly feel that if these people know me and if it can happen to me, it's probably happening to other people. It's probably happening to other women. So I think it's just really important to have that conversation. I don't know what the statistics are like in the States, but in Canada, a woman dies at the hands of her partner every day and a half.
Oh,
And that's just happening way too frequently. I mean, we're a smaller country population wise. So, I mean, those kinds of startling numbers are disturbing. And I think the only way to stop it is by people knowing about it and being aware of it and how commonplace it is, and that it is happening probably to someone they know and they care about.
I am so
Yeah.
glad you reached out because we feel the same way. Like we want some people might not even really realize they're in that kind of relationship until it's so far into it and they're so deep that it kind of just shocks their system. So for you to come out and speak about it, that's amazing. And I want to hear all about it because I'm sure it's really different where you are versus where we are and how things are
Hmm.
handled. So we're curious about that too.
For sure.
And
I'm an
where
open
do
book.
you
So
speak every year, you said?
I
Do
don't
you
speak. I've written stuff about my experience and I've written about my story. There's a lot of aspects of my story that I've never really shared openly either, but there are some posts that I do share, and I just share them on my Facebook just for my friends to see.
Mhm.
And I actually really love it when my friends then share my story. Like they'll message me and say, "Oh, can I share your story?" And I'm like, "Yes, please." Like the more people are aware of what's happening out there, the more change can happen and the more people can get involved and active, right? So
And if there's anything that we can share for people, send me the link. I'll put it in the show notes.
fantastic. Thank you. Yes, no,
Whatever you want,
absolutely. Yeah,
I would love to
100%.
do that for
Yeah,
sure.
thank you.
So what's
Yeah.
was your story like a current one or did this happen a long time ago or
This was 18 years ago now. Yes, about 18 years ago now. Yes. This would have happened. Let me just think. Yes, it's going to be 18 years, ironically enough. So every year I celebrate what I call my second birthday,
I
which
love
is
that.
the day that I left my situation, and that was November 18th. So next week will be my 18th second birthday. And that was the day that my neighbor called because she heard the fighting and she called the police. And the police in London, Ontario, which is where I lived at the time, broke down the door and or like banged on the door, and my partner ended up opening it up knowing full well that it was the police. And he was taken away that night. And I was barely conscious when the police found me. They
Oh
said
my
had they been any
gosh.
longer, I would not have been alive. Yeah.
Oh wow. Uh,
Yeah.
What are
So it
you
was a kind.
comfortable sharing as far as
Oh, I
like
can share anything. I can explain. I don't know if you guys want me to start from the beginning
yeah,
when it
start
all
from the beginning
happened.
because I
Okay.
think that some people might not see those red flags because you
Yes.
know how it is when you're into
Uh-huh.
somebody and you're in love, you're ignoring flashing lights in front of you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Right.
Yeah.
Like you go through, it's funny because when you're driving, you would stop at a red light, but there's all kinds of red lights and you just go, I'm just going to keep driving. It's okay. Right. So
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because women have a lot of women anyway. I don't know if it's maternal instinct or whatnot, but we have this desire to take care of people and to, oh, I can fix them, I can make it better, I can fix this, like, oh, it's fine, whatever. Or on the flip side, we also have this thought process, and that could be partially from society, I don't know, where we take ownership for things that we don't need to own, right? Oh, this is going on, I must have done something wrong, I must have. So I think the first time that happened, I probably just, my partner said, oh, I'll never do that again, I'll never do that again. And domestic abuse is very much that way. It's very like cycler in a lot of relationships where the violence happens, I'll never do it again, there's a honeymoon phase, and then it happens again, and you just rinse and repeat over and over. Oh, I promise. And then things are good for a little while, and then it happens again. Oh, I'm sorry. So I had met my ex-partner. My friend from work was his stepfather and was like, you should meet my son, my stepson, blah, blah, blah. You guys would really hit it off. So we went on a date, hit it off. Everything was good. Everything was going well. And then I can't remember how exactly far along into the relationship we moved in together, probably in hindsight really quickly, but we did move in together. And after about 6 months of living together was when the first incident happened. And I don't even really remember how it actually transpired, what happened. A lot of the stuff I've kind of blacked out or whatnot, or just like put out of my mind. I do recall one time in particular, we were in our apartment and we had a fight. And this was very, very early on. So this would have been potentially the first, if not like one of the very first instances. And we got into a fight and I ran to the bathroom because I was horrified. I was scared. He was very agitated. He was very angry. So I ran to the washroom. I went to the bathroom, give us some space. We had only a 1 bedroom apartment. There wasn't lots of space. So I went to the bedroom, went to the bathroom, and he proceeded to punch the bathroom door and actually rip the door apart. Like
That's
literally.
terrifying.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely horrific. Like we had to repair the door because like it was literally, there was wood just gone, bits of wood gone. And yeah, you hit that point and you go, okay. And then you hear the, oh, I'm so sorry, it won't happen again. And I was very disillusioned thinking, okay, he had an addiction problem. He did have a drug addiction problem. And I just always felt like I could help him. Okay, yeah, I can help him. I can, I can fix them. It's the fix them syndrome, and that just basically it escalates. So you think, okay, yeah, I can, it's fine. It's just this one time. And oh, he didn't mean to do that, or he's got a problem. It's okay. Things will get better.
Yeah.
And then
Once
by
I
that
fix
point,
him, he won't do that anymore.
yeah. And by that point, you're just so far, you can't leave. And it's
Elizabeth,
interesting. Yeah.
what was his drug of choice, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes, absolutely. It was opiates.
So
Um,
aggression, he was
at,
aggressive.
oh, very, very much so. Yes. He very much enjoyed Oxycontin was predominantly it. He would crush and snort it, or he would crush it and inject it. And I didn't realize he was injecting until a couple of years later when I started finding needles around our house, like tucked in places, which was extremely dangerous for a few reasons, because it was dangerous to me. And it was
Mhm.
also dangerous because we were renting that apartment, that house. And if somebody ends up, there's
Right.
stuff in the closets and stuff. And I mean, you could prick somebody, you could hurt somebody, you could, so yes, he was very aggressive that way. And it was partially, some of it was when he was high. A lot of it though was interesting because when he would get high, he would be very calm. And if he would come, he wouldn't be very, he would just do this thing. Like his eyes would be half closed and he'd be lost in his own little world. I kind of distinctly remember that. I remember one time, and the reason why I say that is because I remember one time when we were actually in that house. So we had moved into a bigger place. I can't remember if we had moved out of that apartment by choice or if it was because our landlord was like, enough, you guys are out of here. So we did move somewhere else, and we got a house, and that was fine. But again, incidents start to happen, right? So he punched a hole in the wall at one point. I do recall at one point we got into a fight. I went downstairs to go hide in the basement, and he smashed all the picture frames on the main floor. And then in the meantime, somebody came by and I guess brought probably some Oxycontin would be my guess. And I just remember him being there, and you could tell he was high. He had the dopey half closed eyes, and he was just sitting there dancing. And he's literally barefoot, and he's just dancing on broken glass everywhere. And there was like blood everywhere. It was just like, and he just had no, because it's OxyContin too. It's a pain
Hmm.
reliever, so he doesn't even feel the pain, right?
Right.
Um, so things like that. He was just very aggressive. There was a time that we went camping, and his friends were started to become more and more aware, and just didn't really do anything about it. And again, a lot of that again is just not knowing what to do, or it's okay, or she deserved it, or whatever their mindset was. I'm not really too sure what was going on there. One time we went camping and something happened, and he got very angry with me. And I was drinking an orange juice in the evening, and I just had a bottle of orange juice. And I remember I was drinking it, and he came up behind me and he punched me in the back of my head. And
For no, like nothing was happening. You just got
not from what I
punched.
recall. I
Not
think he
that.
just probably, like, it wasn't like we were fighting or anything, right? Like he just literally just walked up, punched me in the back of the head, and chipped the front two of teeth. Yeah. So I know it's an audio, so you can't really see them, but yes, the front two teeth, my front two teeth are chipped, and I can actually still feel the taste of my teeth going down my throat. And that was
Oh my
we were
God.
out camping, and it was at a lake, and his friends were there, and they were aware of what had happened. And just instances like that. There was one night in particular where there was a night that we went to a party at his cousin's house, or there's like a get together kind of thing. It wasn't anything crazy. And they lived relatively close to us. And we left the party and we were going to walk back home. Now we had had a few drinks. So we were, my ex and I were walking back home. And for some reason, we were arguing about something. Probably he was very, I am not the best person of when it comes to like being jealous. I do get jealous at times. And
Hmm.
he's very like, he doesn't really care. He would talk to any girl and not really care about how I felt, or flirt with other girl or whatever, and just not really respect me, right? So anyway, so I remember we were fighting, and he pulled my purse, and all my stuff went flying everywhere. This is as we're walking, and this was literally steps away from his cousin's house. And he turned around, and so he started walking ahead, and I was kind of like going a little slow because I was like scared. And he turned around, and I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but he was like, F it, it's worth it. And he turned around and he came back and he wailed me in the face. And I ended up down on the curb, and my head ricocheted off the street curb. And he just sat there and was just beating me. It was just punching me in the face, just over and over and over. And the neighbor across the street came outside and said, Hey, you two, just so you know, the cops have been called. That was it. He bolted, he grabbed me, he's like, let's go. And we took off because we were scared. Picked up all my purse stuff and took off. And the next day, his cousin came over and said that the neighbor knocked on the door and said that there was a couple who got in a fight. They were walking, and, explained everything that had happened. And his cousin was like, this needs to stop. You guys can't be doing this, blah, 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 blah. But then that was it. That was the end of the conversation. And he never came back and said, Hey, like, Liz, like, is Trevor still doing this? Or there was no real follow through. And then there was another incident. So that same incident, my friend found out, his stepfather found out what happened. And the next day, I ended up having, because he was also kicking me at the same time, ended up having some pain in my side. So we did not have a car. So his stepfather took me to the hospital, and I ended up having some kidney damage and some slight liver damage. Yeah, his stepfather knew what had happened. I lied at the hospital because I didn't want him to get taken away. But yeah, because you're so blinded in that moment, and all you want to do is protect that person. And you're also very scared in that moment, and you're scared of what could happen if this person gets taken away. Like, it's just, it's almost like a brainwashing. Like, you're just so wrapped up in that. It's so weird and surreal.
And like something
And
worse could happen if you say something too.
yeah, but it's also like it's part of that systemic, like, I did this, I did something wrong, I must have provoked him, so you want to protect your partner. You don't think about yourself in that moment. And
Mhm.
it was very weird because he never got arrested for any of these things. Like, I went to the hospital, the father-in-law knew the whole nine, or the stepfather knew everything. And things came to a head. We finally, I just like, we had kind of taken a step back from our relationship and stuff. And This was very early November of that year. And he said, look, like we had RSVP'd that we were going to go to a wedding on the 18th of November. So we said, okay, let's, we're going to go to this wedding. So, okay, fine. So we went to a wedding, and my good friend Teresa was texting me, and my friend Scott was texting me, and I was trying to pair Teresa and Scott up at the same time. Oh, my. So Teresa and Scott were texting. Everything was fine. I was texting, trying to like mediate between us two. I was being a little matchmaker kind of thing. And he took my phone, and we were in the cab. We were coming back from the wedding, and he took my phone, and he read a message that had come in, and he didn't ask for clarification, didn't ask if we didn't read any of the previous conversations, didn't read the other person's chat, completely misread the situation, smashed my phone. So we were in the house by this point. So we got out of the cab, we paid the cab, and he went and he took my phone because it went off while we were in the kitchen. And he took it and he opened it, he misread this text, smashed my phone, and then proceeded to start like freaking out. He punched one of our closets. I took off. I was horrified. He started hitting me, and I was like freaking out. So I took off, and I ran down the hall and went up the stairs. Ran up the stairs. I don't know what I was going to do. I mean, where was I going to go when I ran up the stairs? But in that moment, so horrified, and you're just trying to escape and you're trying to get away. So I went running up the stairs, and I ran up into the bedroom, and I got on the bed, and he caught up to me and pulled me by my hair and pulled me off the bed and started punching me again. And horrified, I turned around and started to run again towards the stairs. So I started running down the stairs, and he came up behind me and pushed me down the stairs the rest of the way. So I went down the stairs, and I hit the closet, and he kind of like dragged me back around the corner towards the living room. It was very weird. It's hard. I've kind of like suppressed a lot of it because it's just a weird moment in my life, and it's a weird time. And he was punching me in the face. And then at one point, because we were going to a wedding, we had an iron it because we were iron. One of us had to iron something. So anyway, I just remember the iron was out on the table. He picked up the iron, and I thought he's going to smash my face in. And he turned around and smashed his own face, which was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen anybody do. Because why would you put your own pain? I have no idea. I just remember he was bleeding on me, and he was still punching me, and I was barely conscious. And then I heard some noise, and I just remember him going, "That's the cops. The cops are here now. The cops are here, and it's because of you and because of this. And they're here, and now they're going to take me away. And I hope you're happy. And I hope you get what you want." And they're banging on the door and banging on the door, and the cops came in, and I was like barely conscious, and I like somehow I just remember like they came in, and I was like, and I went upstairs. I like came kind of a little bit came to, and I went upstairs to the bathroom upstairs, which is right next to our bedroom. And ironically enough, so I came in, and I was just trying to get the blood off my face because again, you're in protection mode. You're trying to protect your partner. You're trying to hide what's happening because there's also a little bit of shame, I think, too, an embarrassment that you're in the situation, especially because when I was younger, I would hear stories about domestic abuse, and I would say, like, that's never going to happen to me. And that would never happen to me. I would never stay. And here I am, and I'm in it, smack dab for like 2.5 to 3 years at this point. And there's blood all over my face, and I just am trying to wash it off, and I looked up, and there was a woman police officer and a man police officer. And it was very weird because I found out after the fact that the male officer was actually subbing in for my friend Ben, who was a police officer, who had to call in sick that night. If not, it would have been him at my call, which would have been would have taken a weird turn. But anyway,
Yeah.
so long story short, yeah, they took him away that night. That was that, and I had to give a statement. Obviously, what happened. I denied completely that he did anything. It didn't matter because fortunately in Canada, if I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but at least where I am, if the police officer has reason to believe that their partner has done something, they will remove the partner and charge the partner based off of the fact that they are understanding the mentality and the what is happening in that person's. And I want to say in a woman's head, but it's not only a woman because unfortunately men also face domestic abuse, and that's actually a misconception of violence, but predominantly women's heads is again that thought process. So they typically don't say anything. They typically are scared or worried or want to protect. So they don't say anything. So they enacted laws now that the officer can make that decision. So yeah, so he was taken away, and it was all very weird. So a testament to how my mindset was, and this might give potentially listeners an idea of what it's like and how convoluted and how almost brainwashed you are in that moment. I, for days and for weeks, blamed myself, and I refused to press charges, and I actually was trying to get him out of jail. I was trying to get him out. I was trying to, like, just the whole 9 yards. And I didn't care at all about what had happened to me. I didn't care about the fact that, I mean, I played soccer at the time, and I went the next morning after everything. My best friend came and she had taken me to, we went, she knew what had happened. She came right away as soon as she knew what had happened that evening. And then the next morning, we were just like, well, let's just try and have just like, I just need a distraction kind of thing. So we went for our soccer, and I came around the corner, and I was literally like down the hall, and my coach took a look at me and was like, what the F did you do? Because you could see my face was like swollen in, right? So yeah, it was a very weird, and I, again, still just kept denying. It was a state of denial. And that's how messed up your mindset is in that moment. Like, you are just not thinking about yourself, and you're not, and this went on for weeks until, actually, ironically enough, until I met my family, and we went for every year we do a Christmas lunch thing, and we went for Christmas lunch. And that was the first year that my niece actually had said my name. And I remember coming home that day, and I was like, I would never have heard that if he told me. Like, I just would never have heard that. My nephew would be telling me about school. And it was just, that was the moment that went, oh my God, like, look at all this stuff that I would have missed out on. And that's when it kind of clicked for me. He was released. His mother and his stepfather had him released on bail. They put the house up as collateral to have him released. I was told by the courts, despite my intentions and despite me asking, I was not allowed to be told what he was charged with. And I suspect that's partially because I didn't actually press the charges, the police officers did. I was not allowed to be told what he was being charged with, what his sentence was, and if he was found guilty. A little while later, this would have been February, so fast forward a few months, and I had a dog. We had a dog, and I was still in the same house. I have no idea why I would have stayed, but anyway, so again, I was still in the same house. And I came home, and it was very, very, very close to Valentine's Day, and I came home, and I came in, the dog was gone. And I'm like, okay, dog. And I noticed that the basement door was open, and I knew that I left it closed because I didn't want the dog going downstairs when I went home. And so I instantly knew that he had been in the house.
As amazing as the officers are, and as amazing as they are that they, do what they can and stuff, this is kind of also a fault of the system. And I remember calling 911 and saying, look, here's what happened. My house got broken into. I know it's my ex dog. I don't know if he took anything else. He might even still be in the house. I have no idea. I haven't inspected the house. I don't want to go any further than here. Blah, blah, blah. And they were like, okay, wait, stay there and stay there. That's their piece of advice. I'm like, he might still be in the house. And they're like, stay there. I'm like, okay. And they said, we'll send officers over. So I'm like, okay. So I'm waiting. And I, again, called my best friend, my best girlfriend. She came over right away. And I just kept calling dispatch and was like, where are you? Like, where's the police? This is like after, I'm not talking like 10 minutes. I'm talking like 40, 45 minutes.
For them to respond?
That I was waiting for them to show up at the house. And remember, again, he could have been at that house. He could have still been in the house. He could have been in the basement hiding. I had no idea what was going on. And yeah, and I remember very distinctly over an hour later calling them up and being like, and the dispatcher had the nerve to say to me, you need to understand there's higher priority calls. And I literally said to her, when do I become a priority? When my brains are splattered on the wall? Is that when I become a priority? And I hung up because I was like, I could be dead and you guys are not going to do anything about this. And that's, yeah, it's kind of messed up. Like, it's kind of a weird, yeah. I kind of feel like domestic violence in the system is still very much a gray zone in some way. Yeah.
Can I ask you some questions about your system? Because I know how it is here, but and I'll compare at the end when you're finished with your story. But I'm interested because you had said when you went to the hospital that you didn't tell them. Had you have told them, what would have happened?
Had I told them, I believe my understanding is that the doctor would have had the prerogative to report it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Same with the states. Same with the states.
Yeah.
Um, as far as when they took him away and they didn't tell you what he was being charged with, they didn't give you a protection order or anything.
Nope.
Do you know now what he was charged with? Isn't that public record? You
Still
don't
no
know?
idea. No idea. He's tried to find me on Facebook. I have blocked. Oh yeah. No, I have no idea still. I could probably find out now. I don't know. Years later, I don't know. I've kind of stepped away and have just made my peace with it because let's be honest, at the end of the day, if he was charged with something, if he wasn't charged with something, if he got a full sentence, if he didn't, I have no say in it, unfortunately, right? Like I don't really have control over that. So that's the unfortunate part.
Right.
So yeah.
So
But
so
at the time there was they didn't give me a case number.
nothing.
They never really followed up afterwards. There was really no, you know, social support person who came over and was like, hey, just so you know, like we know that we charged him. If this is the situation, here's some domestic, here's some, resources for nothing. There was nothing. I was on my own.
See, here, we're not given the resource, and I'm speaking for Kentucky. I also am aware of New York because that's where I'm from, but I'm speaking from Kentucky's point of view. We have the Vine system, VINE, which if you are involved, only you have access to that person. So you can follow that person all the way through, whether it's your protection order or somebody else's. And that goes for domestic violence and also partner violence. So an emergency protective order or domestic violence order. So we have DVO and we have EPO here. And I think there's one other one, but don't quote me on that. Anyways, when you get that, you still have to put down your address, your phone number, because in that paperwork, which you have to fight for, by the way, as a woman,
Yeah.
to
And
get
as a
that
victim.
file. Yes, to even have them listen. Now, when the police show up, they should, here in the States, they should separate you two. And then whatever is happening, somebody's going to jail because they
Right.
have to, because in these instances, obviously, that he can come back in and there it is again, because obviously you still are feuding, and I don't mean you, I mean him, but in this
Yeah,
instance,
a generic you. Yeah.
right, right. So I do know that from a Kentucky aspect, but even still, a lot of times they'll go out of their way to find you a safe place to sleep that night or whatever. And they didn't even do that for you.
No.
And I'm surprised they didn't give you resources. Now, for us, we have to find the resources ourselves. We have to go to the Justice Center and file the paperwork, give our address, give our phone number, even if we're staying someplace safe. He still needs to know because he has to stay 500 feet away from you. So
That
he
seems
knows.
so wrong.
Right.
It's very counterintuitive. Like it's very, yeah.
Correct. And then the other thing is that obviously we have rights. We have the right to face our accuser and such. But even when you go to court as a female with domestic violence, going against you're the victim, and you walk in, he's the defendant, and you're facing him. A lot of women won't even do that. They won't even go that far.
Right.
They'll stop at the Justice Center and say, this is bullshit, and walk out.
And this happens very systemically throughout, where it's not even just domestic abuse. This happens as well with, sexual assault victims as well as another common one, where women do not want to press charges and women do not want to share their stories because they have to face that again. And typically, because it's statute of limitations, it has to be dealt with right away. So the victim hasn't even had the time to process and to sort through what they've been through and to start the healing process to be able to face so it's a really interesting, it's a very convoluted, I feel, system. It's a very, at least here, I feel in a lot of ways, the judicial system, I understand innocent until proven guilty, but come on. I mean,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
the
There's
officer
protections. They
Yeah.
even had it here in Kentucky where you couldn't get your carry concealed permit until you were, I think, 6 months as a resident or something. They've since lifted that because one of the females came to them and said, "Is there an emergency type permit?" And they said, "No, we don't have that." And she's like, "So I have to literally wait 6 months. I need to protect myself." He walked
Mhm.
into her work and killed her with a AR-15
Oh, Jesus, Murphy.
the next morning. You know what I mean? So she had no protection. She had nothing. And I'm not saying a gun for her would have mattered anyway. I don't know that, but this happened here. Like this happened in our state. So it just goes to show you, then they changed the law.
Mhm.
And now
Mhm.
we have the permit. Now it's open. Now you can absolutely constitutionally carry, which is separate, but they did do an emergency permit for that. And it's like, why does something have to happen for us to change it?
Exactly.
You
And
know,
this
and
is
I
why
do love,
women don't speak up. And
right,
this is why we
and
want
men.
awareness
Exactly.
done. Yeah.
Yeah. It is a big reason why a lot of women don't speak up. It's a lot of reason why, when women are sexually assaulted, again, the same situation. A lot of women don't come through because what ends up happening, often a woman gets sexually assaulted and her attacker says, don't say anything or I'm going to come back and kill you, or I'm
Mhm.
going to come back and kill your family.
Right.
And if you know that there really isn't protection in the system, then what? Like it's
Right.
just it's a very defeating feeling.
Right.
So, yeah.
You had asked about statistics in the US, and it says just under 15% of women and 4% of men in the US have been injured as a result of intimate partner violence that included rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner. So we lump stalking into that as well.
Mhm.
1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men aged 18 and older in the US have been the victim of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And then it goes on to say 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 men in the US have experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking. And it says almost half of all women and men in the US have experienced psychological aggression by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And it's 48.4 and 48.8% respectively.
That's, yeah.
It's a lot.
Yep.
So literally it's look to the person to your right, look to your person to your left, and one of them is a victim.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other factor in here too that a lot of people don't factor in, a lot of people go, oh, well, why don't they leave? Well, sometimes there's children involved, but there's also a financial aspect as well, because sometimes you get financially blackmailed. Sometimes it's, oh, you're going to leave? Well, or the woman can't, or sorry, the partner, I shouldn't say the woman, but the partner can't leave because they're financially dependent on their partner. Sometimes, the partner will sabotage your credit. They can do things like that. I know my partner rung up a massive phone bill and just didn't care, and I got stuck paying for it, and
Mhm.
things like that. And some of that does happen as well, right? So yeah, it's
Don't they
scary.
say it's the most dangerous time too, is when you go to leave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because to the point that was made earlier, so if what Megan was saying is that if the police officers don't completely remove somebody,
Mhm.
you come back and yes, you're still feuding, but you're not just still feuding. You're feuding, but now you're that person or whoever, the person that's the aggressor is now even more agitated likely. The likelihood of somebody getting into a fight and then the police coming in and the person going, you know what, you're right. I really shouldn't have been doing that. I'm so sorry. I'm just gonna go for a walk and chill out. That doesn't happen. Let's be honest.
No.
What ends up happening more than anything is what happened to me. Now the police are involved. This is your fault. This is your fault. Blah, and it escalates. And it escalates very quickly. So if the person is not removed or something happens, it can escalate very quickly. And yes, it can become very much a very risky situation for a partner, right? I mean, the
Mhm.
same thing. I mean, my ex-partner knew that he was not allowed at the premise. And yes, there wasn't a restraining order necessarily in this true sense of a restraining order, but there was part of his bail condition was you're not allowed to be near her within a certain distance, and you're not allowed to be within the residence where this happened, which happens to also be the residence that I live in. I was not home at the time that he came by, but he broke that bail, that bond by
But
going
how
to
are
the
you supposed to know if you're not informed anyway?
exactly right. So yeah, And he came back for a Kona bike, an $1,800 Kona bike. He took the washer, the dryer, and the dog. So his parents lost their house, which was the bail, and potentially ran the risk of having more jail time for breaking his bond for those items. So what would have happened if I was there? And if I blocked him, or if I was like, hey, like, you can't be here, or whatever, it probably would have, progressed again very quickly. And I was lucky because the woman next door, thankfully, God love her, phoned the police. But it was because, again, somebody cared and somebody was conscientious enough. And that's why I share my story, is because somebody reached up and put her hand up and said, hey, there's a problem next door. Like, you need to come over here. And she got involved. And that's the thing is, I'm a runner. I have been out and have seen men yelling at women or vice versa. And I'm not going to get involved in this true sense of getting in between, because that could potentially hurt both people and myself. But I will call the police or whatever I feel is the most appropriate thing. But that's the importance of people being educated as to what's happening out there, people being aware, and people knowing what to do. Call the police if something looks suspicious. Worst thing that's going to happen, you're going to call the police and it's all just a misunderstanding. And then that's fine. Worst case scenario, somebody ends up dead. Right. So pick and choose so anyway, now I'm just rambling.
No, it's perfect. Yes. So the last time when he got arrested and put away, that was the end of the relationship.
That was correct? The end of the relationship. And then he came back in February and took that stuff. And I was just horrified. Like, one of my friends, I remember I was very, very leery of men after that. I really didn't have any male friends. And I only have one male friend who actually, ironically enough, I met the week before I almost died. So he knew me before and he knew me after, and he was the only person who didn't know what happened. And it was kind of a nice relief, because I would hang out in a public place because I was not prepared to be, around anybody. But I would hang out in a public place and spend time with my friend, and I wouldn't be asked about what was happening, what was going on with this. It was just a nice, Anyway, so I eventually did share. And I remember we were texting, and I was explaining that I literally was sleeping with a knife beside my bed because I was horrified if he came back again. And I slept like that for months, horrified, until I eventually moved out of that apartment. But again, it took me a while to move out of the apartment because he rung up the cell phone bill and he did all this stuff and financially saturated me. And I also had to pay for all the repairs in the house. So I had to take that onus. So I had to stay longer until I could, save up first and last month's rent and get out of there. Right. So again, you're just kind of re-victimized a little bit more every time. Right. So it's very, yeah.
Meanwhile, was he trying to get back together with you, or, you know what I mean? Like, how easily did he let you go?
After that, so they took him away that night. I didn't hear from him again. He did try to reach out to me a while ago on Facebook, like I don't know, 15 years ago, probably now, and said, like, straight up, he was like, I just really want to apologize for what happened. No, you don't. Let's be honest. Maybe you do, but if you really want to be sorry, probably just the best thing to do is just not reach out at all. Just learn to treat women better, learn to treat your partners better, learn to just be more respectful to people, but don't reach out to me and apologize. Because then he's like, do you think we can? No, we're going to block. We're not going to keep in touch. We're not going to, no, none of that. So I just, and it was weird because at the time he was actually dating somebody. I saw that on his profile and I thought, oh God, I so just want to tell her, just to warn her, just in case. But you got to hope that, maybe he got counseling and maybe he's better. So it's not really my, but yeah, no. So he did not reach out after that. I did hear from his stepfather, who was my friend initially, who had initially introduced us. And he proceeded to blame me that him and his mother had lost their house. But it wasn't me who came to the house. It wasn't me who broke my bond. It was his son. But again, there's that state of denial that he could do that. Like, and he knew, like, literally sat on the front step with me. And I told him everything. And I said to him why my kidneys were screwed up. Like, we came back from the hospital and I told him the truth. And he knew, and he did nothing about it. And then to turn around and to blame me because they lost the house. I'm sorry, too bad, so sad. Like in hindsight, I say that now because this is like, so long
That
ago.
makes me so angry.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's very much what it was like. And I remember I was literally horrified that I would run into his cousin or his friends. His friends all knew. Friends all knew what was happening. We went camping one night. This is another crazy story. We went camping one night and we were going fishing. I don't even think we were camping, actually. I think we were just fishing. But we had tents there. Maybe we were going to sleep overnight. I don't know. But anyway, I just remember him and his friend, him and Mike, got really, really, really stupidly drunk, like stupidly drunk. And I knew he had a thing for his buddy's girlfriend. Anyway, so he acted like a complete idiot and thought, oh, I'm going to strip off and take off all my clothes. So he did. He went down, right down to everything. It was just like running around. And it was just like, I wasn't having any of it. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And I was annoyed by the behavior and whatever. And things again. So he knew I was annoyed and he was like, what's your problem? Blah, blah. Well, you're not being very respectful to me and to our relationship right now. But anyway, and then he got very agitated. And I think if I remember correctly, he was coming off of a high. So he's becoming very agitated again. And I remember we got into a fight and we were in the middle of like kind of a little wooded area just outside of London. And that's actually interesting because whenever I go back to London, I always go to this one spot just to kind of have a little bit of closure, I guess, or whatnot. But anyway, and we got into a fight and we were fighting and we were like running through the woods and it was pitch black and you couldn't see where you were going. And he was chasing me. And I remember hiding in a bush, just trying to not have him find me because I knew that I was going to be, and I was horrified. And at some point I couldn't hear him. So I remember just going up and finding my way back to the vehicle. We brought a minivan. We brought Mike and Shira's minivan. So I crawled into the back because I was just going to sleep there for the night because I had no way to get back into town. We were, a little ways away from we were between London and Strathroy. So anyway, so I was a little bit ways out of town and whatnot. And I remember I was sleeping in the back of the mini or lying in the back of the minivan. I was probably crying at that point. I was very upset, very emotional, just trying to have cover. And I remember him coming to the minivan, flinging open the door and seeing me. And there was a lawn chair in there and he just started wailing on me with the lawn chair, and just like plowing on me. And it was like that kind of, it was just like this really weird constant state of everything. And then there would be times that things would be great and it would be calm and everything would be fine. Like it wasn't like this was every day. Things would be fine for a few days and then something would happen, or I would get annoyed because I would, go into the bathroom and there was like lines of Oxycontin on our toilet, and things like that, like normal things. I didn't do drugs, right? So I don't want that in my house. I don't want to be, having stuff in my house that, I don't want all this paraphernalia around. Like it's one thing when it's weed or whatever, especially now because marijuana is illegal in Canada, but I don't want people popping by the house. I'm trying to get this guy clean and people, his uncle Steve is coming by and being like, oh yeah, here's my Oxycontins for the month. Thanks for that. Thanks for doing that,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just very, So things were, and you would think, okay, things are going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Nope. Here we go again. And it's very much like that.
Besides his addiction, did he have any like mental, like when you said he was he good when he wasn't using and only these episodes would happen when he was, or did he have some sort of mental illness that coincided with this?
As far as I know, he did not have a mental illness that coincided with it. Now, having said that, addiction in its own right is
right.
A mental illness, right? But no further mental illness that I am aware of. Now, it's a really good question because was he doing it because he was missing a high? Was he doing it because the drugs were impacting him? Like, was there a chemical imbalance resulting from the drugs? I don't know. It's hard to say what would be mentally processing, right? Like, was he getting angry because he was trying to get drugs and I was stopping him? Was he getting angry because he was coming down from a fix? Was he getting angry because he wanted to get drugs and couldn't get his hands on any? Was he just angry?
Right.
Was there something more going on? Was there something going on at work that I didn't know about and he was taking out on me? I don't know, right? I don't know. Yeah, but it's a good question. I don't know, right? Like, I wouldn't say that he was always high when he would do it. There was one time that we had gotten in a fight again. This was in our very first apartment, the place that he ripped apart the door, and we had gone to an argument, and he was very edgy, and he was not high. He was not high as far as I know. Now, at that point, I was still not sure that he was using, because I was hidden for a really long time that he would use drugs. He would hide it from me. And then at one point, we got into an argument, and it was a ground floor. It was a cute little house, actually. And it was ground floor. Our apartment was ground floor, and the bedroom window would like overlook the parking lot, and which was all street level. And he ripped out the window frame, not the frame, but like the screen, and he came through the window, and he was not high at that time, or again, as far as I could tell, he was not high. So it's hard to say, like, and he had a really weird, I don't know, there was some weird back history. His parents had been separated. His dad used drugs. His dad knew that he was using drugs. The mother's brother had painkillers because he hurt his back, and he would bring them over and be like, "Oh, here you go, Trevor. Here's some Oxycontins." Well, thanks again, right? Like, this is your nephew, and you're encouraging this behavior to him. And it was
I have
sad.
a couple questions too. Speaking of family,
yeah,
did your family know this was going on when it was going on, or did you keep it a secret?
They still to this day don't know.
Okay.
No, actually, I shouldn't say that. So I have 2 older sisters.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest sister does not know. I'm considering telling her so that she can hear this, but I don't know yet. I'm still in 2 minds. My other sister did know. I told her at one point, and one night, I remember, I think it was actually the night that he broke all the frames, and he was standing on the glass in our hallway and in our kitchen and everything. And I was downstairs, and I remember I was on the phone with her, and but they live 100 kilometers away. So that's about 60 miles away. So she could hear what was happening, and she would always be like, "Well, what's going on? Like, are you okay? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah." I think she didn't know what to do either, because I think she was worried about my safety. She called the police as well. So she did not know. My father did not know. And then my mother does not know. My father's passed away last year, but my mother to this day, I mean, she's 85. I don't want to tell her now because
Right.
That's probably not really something I want her to have in her thought. But no, they don't know. No.
That's understandable. I can see. I would probably be the same way. And then my other question, just for other people that have not experienced this, and good thing they haven't, but I think that maybe they don't understand. They're like, I would never be in this situation. You know what I mean? Like, people think that. But I mean, it's not like you grew up seeing this with your parents, right?
Not
and I
at
think
all.
people think in the back of their head that must be the case, because why would someone put up with that? And it's not like that at all.
No. So my father passed away last year, and up until last year, they had been married 56 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And everybody would comment. I would take them out. We would go to my father passed away at 85, and my mom is 85 now. And I would take them out every Saturday. We would go to a bakery that they like, a little bakery nearby. And everybody would be like, "Oh my God, is that your parents? They're so cute." And I mean, literally the Saturday before he passed away with a brain aneurysm, but the Saturday before he went to the hospital, I have a photo of the 2 of them, and they're standing in front of the display case, and they're holding hands.
Oh.
And that's just how they always were. Like, I'd be driving and they'd be holding hands in the back seat. So for perspective's sake, to your point, it's absolutely not at all.
No, it's not.
Anything that I was exposed to, anything that I grew up with, or anything along those lines at all.
You know what I think? I think they can seek out people that are good people. They have a good heart, and you want to help them. You are the fixer, and they know that, and they take advantage of that. And there's nothing wrong with the people that this happens to. They have a good heart, and I think that they take advantage. That's all there is to it.
And even if you don't have a good heart, you still don't deserve, you know what I mean?
No, it's just easier to manipulate, I think, because
it is very much
they know that you're going to hang in there longer than maybe someone that wouldn't put in all the effort to fix someone, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, not that I definitely don't want to share my story. You know, that's not the point of this, but I do want to say that my background, you know, I know that the listeners, I've only been on 3 episodes so far, Liz. So I know that I think they know, or maybe only went to the Patreon group, but I came here for the Secret Service. My background's in criminal investigations. I'm a firearms instructor. Like, these are all things that I have. You would never think that I would be in a situation similar to yours, and I was.
Oh my
And that
gosh.
my daughter came from that, and I got away, you know. But the reason why I stayed is because if I said anything, if I had a protection order, I would lose my job. And he knew that.
Gosh.
So
Wow.
he used that against me all the time. But this again, never. If 10 years prior to this, you would have said, Megan, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I would never have ever said I would be in a situation like this that we're talking about today. There's no way. There's
Exactly.
no way.
Yeah. And it almost like creeps up on you. You just wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I'm in that situation. And by that point, you are so stuck, and you can't just,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know again what it's like there, but here, at least where I was living at the time, there are spaces for women to go, but spaces are limited and spaces are predominantly understandable given to women and children.
Yes.
So if you're like me and you don't have women and children and you don't want to go to your family because you don't want them to worry and you don't want them to stress and you don't want to drag them into this mess, or you also don't want to bring your family in because you don't want to expose them to that and potentially have them get harmed in the situation as well, which could also happen because they may not necessarily, your partner may not necessarily just, threaten you, but can threaten people in your life. They can threaten your friends. They can threaten your family members. They can threaten people who are close to you. To the same point about that woman in Kentucky who died in her workplace.
Yeah.
That guy could have killed more people while he was there. Like, things like this. So, yeah. So I think that's a lot of it as well, is that like in London, there really were not enough resources. And this was after I'd worked at a homeless shelter. So I was very familiar with the resources that we had in town and stuff. And yet it's the same kind of thing again, right? You have women who, end up on the street and there's only one female homeless shelter. So there's nowhere for women to go. There's just not enough resources out there.
And you got to get there. You
Yes.
have to physically get there. And a lot of times you can't.
No. And again, if you're financially not in a position, you can't get yourself there, right? Because again, to the same point, if you don't have a car, how are you going to get there? Okay, you got to take a cab. Well, if you don't have money, how are you going to take a cab? Especially in a lot of situations, the partner controls the finances.
Exactly.
It's a financial manipulation. So they control your finances. And one thing to mention too in here actually is it's not even just a physical control or even things like forcing, sexual relations on you and things like that. Those things sort of happen as well too. And there's the financial control, but there's also even there's an emotional abuse, there's the financial abuse, and I'm trying to think of what the other one is. And there's also the control of who are you talking to?
Manipulation.
Exactly. Stalking your Facebook page, checking on, going through your phone, things like that. That's also forms of control. And that's still not okay behavior. It's still a form of controlling a person. That's not okay.
No.
Yeah.
So,
and then they make you feel crazy for it.
Yeah. Very hard to get out of a situation like that at times.
I guess what I would like to know too,
Mm-hmm.
you get out of the relationship, you're safe. You're building your life again. Moving forward, how do you trust another man in a relationship? Do you almost like not trust your own judgment? Because you know how some people will date the same person, but they just have a different face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and we don't know we're doing
it.
it. Yeah. So what does that look like?
It took me some time to get out of that situation. So it took me some time to kind of process and stuff. I did not get into another relationship. So we're 18, 3 years. 3 years before I got myself into another relationship.
And how long were you in that relationship?
The next one?
The abusive one. How long were you in that one?
Sorry. Almost 3 years.
Okay, so you were in one for 3 years and then you took 3 years off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not, for any particular reason, the 3 years I took off. It was just that was,
healing.
I started to feel like I was in a place that I was okay again, to start to be open to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did take things very slow as a result. Again, right? You're very cautious to your point, right? And you do often tend to date very similar personality. You get attracted to the same, your type is your type, and that's that. Yeah. And I think a lot of it was partially just spending more time with my family and part of me not sharing so much with my family as well was because there was a physical distance between us. They had lived, oh no, I'm sorry. They live 100 kilometers away now, but I was in London at that time. So for perspective, that would have been 200 kilometers, so about 120 miles. So it was quite a bit further away. I didn't see them as often. I didn't have a car. So I would take the bus to see them. So yes, so I didn't see them as often, but I would make a point. And my niece would have been, my nephew would have been about 5. So my niece would have been about 2 max, probably younger than that. So just seeing them more and being in their lives more just kind of really drives home the point of what you want from your own life. I think when you hit a point where you almost die, you kind of reflect on things and you're like, wow, like, okay, I almost missed this and I almost missed that. So I think that was a lot of what was going through my head was being around the kids and going like, oh, I almost missed these moments and that sort of stuff. And I was very lucky. I had really good friends who helped me through a lot of it and started making other connections and other friendships and stuff that really kind of helped, and it's cliche, but time does heal things as well. And I think that when you step away from that relationship and you are in somewhat of a form of healing or you're just stepping away from it, you kind of go, why was I there? Like you kind of come out of this like trance almost that you were in and you come out and you're like, oh my God, like it's like you wake up from a dream almost. Like I don't know how to really describe it, but that's very much that kind of sentiment. You sit there and you go like, to Megan's point, like, you never thought you'd find yourself in that situation. And then it's almost like so you're in this situation and then you come out of it and it's all very surreal. It's all very weird. Like it's all very, how did I get there? Like, it feels very much like a dream sometimes. Like it's just very, and when you look back on it, like now, so now it's been so many years and I look back on it now and even talking about it now, it feels very much like, did that even really happen? Like, and it's funny because like the same thing to the point of my chipped teeth. The 2 front of my teeth are cracked. And my dentist is always like, oh, don't you want to get them fixed? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I don't want to get them fixed because I want to have that reminder of what I went through. And this reminds me to never find myself in that situation again. And it also is a reminder of how strong I am and how much I've come through and all of that. But that's part of it. I don't want to, because it also helps me remember that this was not like I did go through this and I did experience it. I did come out on the other side, fortunately, fortunately for me, but unfortunately for many, many when people out there who do not come out of this. But yeah, so it's a very, I don't know how to explain it. It's just all very weird. It's a very weird time when you look back on it and you go, wow, like, okay. Like, it's just, yeah. But anyway, probably not describing that very well, but.
No, you are very much like for you to come on and even just talk about it is like pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And I guess, what does healing look like for you? Like you're on here tonight and I was talking to Nayoka before because I didn't really know what was going to be said. We didn't know your story. Right. We had no backstory on any of this. And I had said to Nayoka, I said, I'm really glad that she is being vocal about this because I have not dated and it's been 7 years and I am hyper independent and I'm in therapy. So, and I'm open about my therapy sessions, like everybody knows that. But the therapist told me the best thing you can do is be vocal. So occasionally I'll post something on Facebook and, I get this response of you need to be more vocal. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is working. So that's part of it. But what does healing look like for you? Like how over the years have you healed and what is it that you have done for yourself?
So that's a great question. So I believe it was 60 days after It was in January of that year. I wrote a piece that I shared on my Facebook. Facebook was very new at that point too. It's all very weird. It was like this weird social media thing that I literally just got onto right after everything happened. And I remember doing a lot of writing about it. And I think that that helped provide clarity. Was writing about it was my form of talking about it. So I wasn't talking about it specifically with someone. I was talking about it with a couple of my friends who, like my one of my best friends at the time, who the person who came over right when the cops were there, came over the next day. We went for soccer together, that whole 9 yards. I would talk to her about, we would go out for coffee and we would talk about it. And, I would write about it. And I remember sharing it on Facebook, sharing something on Facebook, and people's responses to it were helped kind of make me go, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm going in the right direction with this. I'm kind of, okay, this is, a lot of time by myself. And I think I just kind of got to the point, and it was kind of weird because for a really long time, I would find myself in friendships or whatnot where it felt very much like, I still felt that need to feel like I wasn't okay to be by myself. Like I still needed to have, and maybe that's what my ex-partner provided for me, was that I wasn't by myself. I could never really be alone. And prior to that point, I was a serial datist, right? I would go from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship. And I just never felt comfortable on my own. I never felt any of that. He gets, please come in. He gets taken away, the whole 9 yards. I would spend days and days and nights more so by myself. Days were easier because you can get out, you can go for a walk, you can get on the bus, you can do whatever, you can go sit in a coffee shop. You can't do that like 10 o'clock at night, So you're kind of forced to kind of just process things and reflect on things and go through things in your head. And I think I did a lot of that. And it's still a journey. It's still very much a journey. I after 3 years got myself into a relationship that was much healthier and, a much better place. But I still have sometimes, like, it took me a long time. It was actually until the pandemic that I started to learn that it was okay to be myself and to be by myself, because I would go to work 5 days a week and I worked in an office and there was people everywhere. And then all of a sudden the world shut down and I would have to be at home by myself. So then you have to be comfortable with yourself and I'm a very extroverted person. So it's very hard for me. I very much socially struggled during the pandemic as well, because I'm by myself. There's no one for me to talk to. I mean, my cat's not going to talk back to me, I mean, maybe a little, but not much, so I think a lot of that is just becoming comfortable in yourself. And when you become comfortable in yourself, you start to realize what you want and, what you won't tolerate and your own confidence and and part of it does help too, that when I've shared about it and when I've talked about it with people and stuff every year, I get amazing support from my friends. And I shared every year because, yes, a lot of my friends were friends with me back then, but a lot of them weren't. I mean, a lot of people who have been on my Facebook have only joined my Facebook like recently. I've met them through my running group, or I met them through different facets in life, because that's what life's like. You're always, meeting new people and stuff and interacting and stuff. So I always share it again so that new people can learn about it. B, also because, it serves as a reminder, hey, like, still talking about this, it's still happening, just so you guys know, kind of thing. And I think that really helps, is having that support and having people, hey, you know what, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm so glad you're so open about it and this and that. So I think that kind of has helped me as well. I like to think that I'm healed-ish, but I'm cautious about that, because I know that I got myself into that situation once, didn't see it coming. You could still end up back in that situation, even if, to me, I'm cautious about it. So
Absolutely. Have you wrote a book or anything about your experience, or do you just write blogs or anything? Okay.
No, I've just done random writing. And it's funny because I used to be a writer. I used to do a lot of writing. I've always wanted I remember when I was younger, I was writing a book that I wanted to try and get published. And then I kind of hit writer's block. And then I actually stopped writing. And then funny enough, I now do pen paling, funny enough. So I actually write letters. Yeah. So it's actually kind of funny. So I actually do write letters and stuff. And I thought about writing about it. I don't know. yeah, I'm just kind of all over the place on it. But yeah, no, so that's all I've ever really done is actually really just shared on my Facebook and stuff. I've never really thought about doing a blog. I think, I don't know. Sometimes I get overwhelmed. I think, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work.
If you ever do, let me know. I would love to read it for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So
I
what do
have
you
one
guys think?
subscriber.
Right. I got you.
Yeah.
So since you both have kind of like experienced this,
Mhm.
how do you think we can bring more awareness and like make things what would make things better? Is there anything out there resource wise or just helpful advice or anything? What do you think? Just talking about it more in general? I mean, normalizing that people go through this? I don't know.
Can I step in just for a
Yeah,
quick
please
second?
do.
All right. So, when Liz was talking, she had friends that she could reach out to, right, and discuss this with.
Hmm.
A lot of times women are isolated. So in
Mhm.
these situations, you're extremely isolated. And I'm sure he did that to you. You had mentioned he went through your phone and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, in my situation, again, not trying to personalize anything, but
No, no.
I'm a very much an extrovert as well. And I didn't even realize that I hadn't talked to my dad. I talk to my dad every day, like twice a day. Still, I'm 41 years old. But my dad actually called me after a 2 week hiatus because I didn't call him. And here I am not even calling my dad. Like I was so
Mhm.
isolated, not talking to my friends, that because I was so ashamed. And being isolated, being ashamed is one of the reasons why women don't come forward. They don't realize it's even happening to
Mhm.
even say anything to begin with. So I think where you know, I want to say intervention, but again, using that term loosely, I think if we could intervene at that point in time and have more awareness, being more vocal in stories such like yours, spreading this out there and saying, look, we hear you, even though you're not talking.
Mhm.
I think, personalizing it and being aware of what's actually happening to the person individually
Mhm.
is really where it needs to start. And then triggers is another thing because I know when you had said you were talking about your relationships and things like that, I get triggered so fast and it's over the stupidest things. But like if somebody does like the smallest manipulative thing, I'm like, I got it. I'm out. I'm out of here. I don't want to deal
Mhm.
with this. I don't want to look at you. Don't even talk to
Mhm.
me. And I don't mean to be so abrasive, but at the same time, these things stick with you. And no matter
Mhm.
how you're healed, whether it's yoga, whether it's meditation, whether it's, finding it within yourself and, not feeling so ashamed, I think still those things are still embedded in you.
Mhm.
They bring up PTSD and things like that. They're embedded in you. And when you see it, it comes right out. And I think honestly, the best thing I did was get therapy. And the only reason why I did was because I was pregnant. And I told the therapist, I said, I don't know why I'm here. I said, but I'm 5 weeks pregnant. I said, I'm going to be stressed out. I have no idea how to be a parent because I was told all my life I can't have kids. What can you do for me? Where do I start? And she has been my therapist ever since. So we're going on seven
No,
years.
that's amazing.
But I think more people need to know that these things are there and these things are actually happening to them. This is
Mhm.
real. It's happening to you, you know?
Mhm.
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 So that's just my
And
little,
maybe like the neighbor calling the police. Don't turn a blind eye to things that you see are wrong.
right.
Yeah, exactly. And it make a really good point because you were saying about how it's those things. There's this meme that's around on Facebook that always says, and you see on social media, and it says like check up on your friends that don't look like they're doing okay, or are really check up on your quiet friends. That's what it is. And it's true. If I'm normally really extroverted and all of a sudden I kind of like there's something going on. There's something up. Like maybe it's something like, oh, I'm just stressed about work. It's not going to hurt to pick up the phone and go, hey, you okay? Like, and that's it. Like your father reached out to you because he was like, oh, there's something not right.
Hmm.
Look for things that are look for breaks in the norm, right? So if you normally talk to your best friend every day and all of a sudden your best friend's not really around, maybe check out on them, right? Or if your sister's a little bit quieter than usual, or, you know, your coworkers, like whatever. Just there's nothing wrong with just being like, you okay? Like, is everything okay? Is there anything you wanna, because and it may not be, hey, that, yeah, I'm getting, my partner's beating me up. It may not be. It could be I'm suffering from anxiety and I don't know how to deal with it, or stress, or, I'm really sick and I'm concerned about, and sometimes it's just that knowing that that person cares enough to reach out to you is enough, right? But I think that's one thing, is definitely look out for changes in behavior, changes in attitude and perception. And especially if you notice this change and the person's recently become, relatively recently, like has started a new relationship or anything along those lines. And because that could be a trigger, right? Like, you're not looking like 3 years down the road and all of a sudden the person changes. Potentially, that is potential. Don't get me wrong. But if somebody gets into a new relationship and all of a sudden they, oh, I can't go out tonight. Sorry, Bobby doesn't let me go out. Well, why isn't Bobby letting you go out? Because Bobby's controlling you. Like, let's call it what it is. Okay. And I'm using this person. This is a very hypothetical person, to be clear. But again, it's that behavioral changes, right? Normally I go out with the girls on Friday night and all of a sudden I can't really go out on Friday nights. And it's just like, well, so-and-so doesn't really like me doing that. Well, so-and-so should understand that you also need your time. And, it's healthy in a relationship for partners to have time apart and stuff. And if suddenly, the person, suddenly that they're not going out as much, or they're not their usual self, there could be something underlying there. So that just watch out for warning signs, watch out for changes in behaviors, communication styles, body language, even, right? If you, for example, if you go, hug somebody, if you see somebody and you haven't seen them in a long time and you run into them in public and, this person, like they're like your best friend or your sister or whatever, and you go to hug them and the person's suddenly very uncomfortable or very jumpy, that could be another warning sign, right? Because they don't want, because they're scared. They're scared of that, So that's another, I don't know.
I think that's super helpful advice, actually. I wasn't even thinking like that, but you're right. You guys are right. When you are noticing differences in someone's behavior and they're falling off the face of the planet, that's a good sign. Something's wrong.
Something else, actually, and this isn't specifically just to domestic abuse. It's just in general for, typically, my understanding is more so for women. But if you're out in the street, for example, and again, I'm a runner, so I'm very in tune and kind of keep an eye on things and stuff. And if you see somebody who needs help or is struggling or looks like they could be potentially in a dangerous situation in general, or even if like a woman's out by herself and it looks like a man's kind of like making her feel uncomfortable, whatever, it's okay to kind of keep an eye out or, interfere. Or if you feel confident enough, hey, are you okay? Or go over to the woman and be like, hey, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Normalize a bit of the situation and make her feel a bit safer and make the other person feel a little bit. But one thing that there is out there, and this is something actually, so if you find yourself in a situation and you're in public, because this doesn't just happen, unfortunately, behind closed doors, but if you're in public and your partner's with you and they're grabbing your arm or whatever, and they're taking you home or they're dragging you into the car or they're doing whatever, take your free hand, put it behind your back, and then with your hands, just signal and just, do something so that anybody walking behind you will it catches their attention. And that's a warning sign. Yeah, exactly. It's closing and opening your fist. Yeah, I knew it was something, but yeah, that's right. Yeah. Open and close your fist. And if you see a woman doing that or a person doing that, walk up and just be like, hey, I've been looking for you. Where'd you go? Or whatever it is. Or, hey, it's so good to see you. Or break that situation up or call for help or something. Just don't leave that person and just turn a blind eye and walk away. It's the same thing. If you're driving on the highway and you see somebody perfectly well the person's drunk and they're driving, you don't just sit there and let them keep driving. You call 911 and you go, hey, like, hello, get this guy off the road before they kill someone, or this girl. Okay, I'm just saying it general. Get this person off the road. If you can save somebody's life, you can help somebody or whatever, do it. Because you just, keep yourself safe in the process. Like, don't expose yourself to danger. But
Right.
just be aware of what's happening. Put your phone down and be aware of what's happening around you. Like, and it's hard now, especially because people are just so blinded. They're constantly their phone in their face, or
Yes.
they're all plugged in. They're not paying attention to what's happening around them. And this is happening. And it's actually happening even more now. Ever since the pandemic, they're saying the number of domestic cases that's happening has gone through the roof, because since the pandemic, partners are more isolated. They're more socially, financially, they're in a lot of people, I don't know what it's like down there, but here we have a lot of people who are unemployed. Our homelessness is through the roof, and a lot of this is very much connected to the pandemic. So again, just be aware of what's happening around, and just really kind of, just really believe that you can make a difference. If you are looking for opportunities and something happens, even if you don't want to get involved, pick up the phone and call 911. You don't have to necessarily, you don't even have to call 911 if it's not like emergency. Just call the local police number. It doesn't even have to be 911. Oh my God, this is emergency right now. You need to come right this second. You know what? I'm not sure if this is what's happening, but just a heads up, I'm watching this go down. You may want to send somebody over here.
That's a great point.
They're professionals. Let the dispatcher make that decision. Let the person answering the phone go, you know what? You're right. This is something I need to look into. Or, oh my gosh, we've heard about this person harassing people in the neighborhood, or, whatever. It's just so important to just help out if you can.
Everyone should have the non-emergency number saved in their phone. There's a lot of people that don't. And they really should. And I don't know, Nyoka, I know you see on our city's not website, on the Facebook page, that community thread we have. I see it all the time. What's the non-emergency number?
I know.
All have that saved.
I have it in here by heart, man. Yes. But it's also saved in my phone too. But you know what I mean. But yes.
I just too want to throw out there that Kentucky does have something else. We have, like, with our protection orders and the DVO orders and things like that, the police have access to that in their cruisers. So on their computers in their car, they have access to that. So if I get pulled over, it pops up. If he gets pulled over, it pops up.
Okay.
So the case is actually there, and they're aware of it. I just had a sheriff come to my house. I want to say it was probably a year and a half ago, saying that he tried to buy a gun, and my EPO is up. So my EPO was the longest I could get, which was 3 years. In that time frame, I had moved, and I didn't want him to know where I was. So I didn't file again, because I was like, I don't want him to know, because I'm going to have to write down the address. I understand why they do that, but I would like to see some reform in. It was hard to do it. And I will say, when I left the first time, I went to the PD, and I'm not going to name the PD, but Nyoka, you know it very well. I went into the PD, and they said, sorry, we don't have anybody on duty right now. You're going to have to go home. And I looked at the girl and I said, go home. And I just started bawling my eyes out. And I said, I literally fought to get here, and you're telling me to go home. Like, no, I'm going to wait here until the officer gets here. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. You call somebody down here.
Right
now.
So, I don't know if they were on another call or whatever. We've got,
it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter what's going on. They need, need to be made a priority too.
It was bad. And that was the first time I left. So, I would like to see some reform. And I'm not saying I'm very pro-officer. My whole dissertation is on law enforcement ethics and things like that. So I'm very much pro-officer. So please don't think I'm not. But at the same time, I know that they get a lot of reports that are just frivolous. And I totally understand that. But I just wish, there was some reform as to, us being able to, like you, in your instance, you didn't know what he was charged with. You didn't know that he needed to stay away. You should be told that. Like, our system here is the Vine system. But again, I have to sign up for it. It should be automatic.
It should be automatic.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to fight so hard for our lives, and for,
exactly.
We shouldn't have to.
It would be kind of nice to have a law enforcement officer speak on this, on their end of things, to help clarify why this is like the way that it is. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know.
It's weird, because if somebody gets accused of sexual assault, in some capacity, they get put on a sex offenders list.
Right.
But yeah,
Well, that's true too.
you could have somebody very violent living,
Right.
and there's just, okay, well, that's fine,
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, right? Like if my ex-partner went out to go buy, you have to get a license here to be able to get a gun. Would that even flag? I have no idea. Would he be able to get a gun?
Here it does. Here it flags.
I don't know if it does here.
But I will say this, with an EPO or a DVO, if you as the person, as the victim, I'll say victims, that way we're not using female or male. If you as the victim do not state where the firearms or where the weapons are specifically, the police cannot take them. So if you don't know where his guns are, or you say they're in the safe and he moved them elsewhere, they can go to the safe, but that's it because of Fourth Amendment protections. So yes, there are protections. Yes, there are laws, and I get that. I want them for me, so I don't want them taken away. I get that. But at the same time, I am telling you, he is going to kill me.
Yeah.
He had the gun on the table, and there it sits.
Yeah.
You know, come on. Yeah, there's a lot.
I think there also needs to be, I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about policemen or women, like police officers.
Right.
They amazing, they put their lives at risk every single day. So I'm not gonna, I think some of it as well, though, is dispatching. The people who answer the phones need to have skill sets and the understanding. Because when I made that phone call and that dispatcher said to me, "You're not a priority," it's not what I want to hear. As somebody who is literally saying, there could be somebody willing to kill me in my house right now. Don't turn around to me and say, "You're not a priority."
Yeah.
Pardon? I'm sorry. What is a priority? A burglary at a bank? Because God forbid somebody take the money. Oh my gosh. Like, of course, if somebody's holding up a gas station and they've got a gun in the person's face, by all means, I get it. Like, I totally get it. But there needs to be that, because I've listened to, I've seen shows and stuff and whatnot. And I remember there was a story about, I can't remember the exact context, but again, it came down to the person ended up dying because it was a woman who ended up dying because the dispatcher did not communicate properly and made it sound like, "Oh, it's okay. It's not urgent that you get there." So the police officers were finishing up at their job. They went and they did a report up. They went to 7-Eleven, or they went to Dunkin' Donuts and bought coffee. And then they went to this call. And by that point, the person was dead. So again, there's not that communication or something. There's something amiss there that they're not understanding. I'm not sure, but there's some kind of disconnect there for sure. So yeah.
There's a story that lives in my head rent free about a dispatcher. Someone drove into water and was in trouble, and the dispatcher made her feel like, well, that was stupid to drive into the water, or that was stupid to do. I don't know. Like, she's dying. You know what I mean? And like, you're the last person,
and you're kicking
to
her
comfort her, and you're degrading her. I don't know.
Yeah. And this case that I'm talking about, the officers, the ones that I'm thinking about, the officers were disciplined and the dispatcher got fired. Oh, I wish I could remember. It was somewhere in the States too. And the dispatcher got fired, but that didn't really help because the person died. So that was really kind of non-helpful. But yeah.
Yeah. And don't get us wrong. Like, I come from a police family. They're working within the laws that are provided to them.
Exactly.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
But it's like, what can be done? Something can be done better. There has to be. I'm just glad that they can now step in on domestic violence calls and put somebody in jail, because before they probably couldn't, and they're returning there over and over and over and over again. And now they can at least do that.
But that's another reason why a lot of people will not call, because they don't want somebody going to jail.
Yeah.
Too. So
that's true. That's true.
It's a double-edged sword there too. And then in Kentucky, we usually send 2 officers to domestic violence. If there's domestic violence, there's usually 2 officers, obviously, to separate and to question separately. But that's if there's 2 on duty.
Good point. Good point.
And part of the problem too, I think, is even if a person does go to jail, there's not especially if it's a first time offender, they don't get a massive sentence. There's not a huge,
Right.
so I mean, what, the person goes away for a few months? Well, that's really going to help, because then they're just going to hunt you down,
Yeah.
and it's just gonna, and there's not even, I mean, as victims, it's great that we can get therapy, but the perpetrators don't get the proper therapy as well, right? So I mean, like in the case of my ex, maybe he got a few months, maybe he got 6 months, maybe he got a year. Is that even long enough for him to detox? Never mind for him to start resolving some of those anger issues and start to resolve and look at his behavior and think that's problematic? Probably not. So maybe he doesn't come after me, but maybe he repeats his behavior all over again. Maybe he doesn't learn his lesson, right? So I think that's
Yeah.
part of the problem too, is that there's not, and I'm not blaming law enforcement, because
Right.
true, they are working within the constraints of their job and their constraints of their rules and all of that. And I totally understand that, and I get that. I blame policymakers and
Yes.
the funding. I do blame some of this on government as well, because
Hmm.
there isn't there isn't discussion about this. You don't see advertisements about this. You don't see when there's an election going on. I know you guys just went through an election, and we're
Mhm.
they're talking about us going for election too. You don't sit here and see our politicians get up there and go, I'm going to work on fixing, making sure that, victims of domestic abuse get the proper support that they need. And I'm going to make sure that our criminals get the proper corrective measures they get so they can be reformed. No, they don't talk about that.
No.
They talk about, I'm going to give you tax breaks, or I'm going to work to go do this, and I'm going to go send our military there. Well, that's really not going to help the people who actually live in your country, So it's not on people's radar, unfortunately.
Yeah. The justice system's broken for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think that's why it's important that, like, Megan and myself and other people who are victims
Hmm.
share their stories. And
Yes.
that, like, this, like a podcast like this, and I appreciate you guys letting me be on here and share this and to talk about this. But it's this kind of format where we have to have these conversations, and we can't shy away from them. And we need to encourage people to not just share their story, but to also be open-minded, to be aware that this is happening, and for that they can sit here and go, you know what, I can be involved, I can be proactive, I can help somebody, and all of those things. And again, it's not, and there needs to also, again, be, because that's also part of the problem, is even when there is information out there about domestic abuse, unfortunately, it's 99.99%. Oh, the woman got attacked. It's also very important that this happens to men as well. So it's also
Absolutely.
very important that information gets shared, right? And that,
Mhm.
when we talk about, looking out for warning signs of people that are in these situations, we're not just talking women, we're talking men as well, right? So
Yes. Yeah. And if there's anybody out there that want to share their story like you did, I mean, reach out to us. If you have questions for Liz that you really would like to be answered and you're going through this, you can always reach out to us and we can reach out to her to
please,
get that
yes,
answer for you.
I'd be happy to answer.
Exactly. So, I mean, anything like that, if there's any way we can help, and if you have any links for us to share or anything, I will do that too. Just send it to me. This means so much that you came on and talked about it. Like, I've been really looking forward to speaking with you
Well, thank
very,
you.
very much. Do you have anything else that you want to ask Megan?
I don't. I'm good. Thank you, Liz. This was great. I mean,
No,
thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
thank you for having me, and thank you for being open to hearing my story.
You were
And,
wonderful.
well, thank you. And thank you, Megan, for sharing yours as well. And
Absolutely.
I'm glad that we're both here to be able to tell the story, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would hug you if I could, Liz.
I know.
I know, right? She's got such great energy to her. I just love you.
Hug everyone.
I know. Yes.
Liz, is there any way that you could give us the link to your domestic violence hotline in Canada?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
get that for you. Yeah.
Good idea.
Because I think being the fact that you are, in Canada and whatnot, we should probably have that, and we should probably link ours as well, Nyoka.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I will definitely do
Yeah,
that.
I'll have to sort it. Yeah, but I'll send that over to you guys.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What's your
And if
friend's
anybody-
name so we can shout? I would like to shout her out and thank her for
Oh, the girl who like stayed. Oh, the one who
shared the post to
Oh,
you
my
and
friend
was like, "Hey,
January.
what's the name? I'm sorry,
January.
January."
Yeah, like the month.
I love
Funny
No
that.
kidding.
Yeah.
I love that.
And funny enough, she's one of my pen pals. She's one of my closest friends. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you,
And
January.
she is in the States.
No kidding.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. She's in Maine.
That's so cool. I'm so glad she shared that. It was just
Yeah.
one of those things I came across and I didn't even realize it was Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I was
Yeah.
at the end of the month and I'm like, well, I didn't even realize it.
We're like, oh.
And then you reach out and I'm like, yeah, that should be all year round, not just a month. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you
Liz.
so
you, ladies.
much. You guys have a good night. I'm going to go ahead and close it out.
All right. Sounds good. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.
Bye. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.